Greetings to our precious audience. I'm Dr. Bob Wellman of the Christian Lady Foundation, which presents these topics. And by the way, in case you're curious about the Christian Lady Foundation, God created it for a very specific purpose. He wanted to be able to help his followers to recover the awareness of their true divine identity and of the divine mind, which enables a person to experience the joys, the peace of God, and supports surrendering the human state in comparison with that marvelous divine state. And we're to teach and support that. And God asks as well that we cover the topic of human misery and how to overcome it. And so that's what we're doing today. And by the way, we also had a radio broadcast on this topic as well. But looking at the footladder of Notes Divine, which is the curriculum for mental health that God has been dictating to me for over these many years, God is referring to verse number 253, in which he addresses this issue. So let's go at it. It is so crucial. Now, what's misery? It's an interesting word. What is it? And I wanted to give thought to it. We know that misery accompanies some kind of suffering, distress, and agony. But I think there's another element to it as well, that misery is not only the experience of feeling this, but it is also the fact we don't have an answer to it. That's misery, a distressing state of mind for which we don't have an answer. Otherwise we would call it a fear. We could call it any other words. But when you realize that misery, down deep misery, means we don't have an answer to how to solve it. And God wants this to be addressed because there are solutions. And we're going to go at those solutions. Now, as I said, if you're looking at the footladder of Notes Divine, which you find on our website, thechristianladyfoundation.org, and that's L-A-I-T-Y, laity, christianladyfoundation.org, you're going to find it in verse number 253. We're off and running on what God lays out in this verse. It's rather interesting if I say to you, what causes misery? Might you say that it's circumstances about yourself or with others which you look upon as being imposed upon you by some kind of an external force or the way you're thinking about it? According to God, God says we cause our own misery. Oh, Bob, now wait a minute. How could God say that if there's a hurricane or an earthquake or other people are causing us great distress, annihilation of us physically, or trying to make us look down on ourselves, annihilating our sense of identity? How can you say that, Bob, when these things occur? The reason that God says we cause our own misery comes from the fact that our way of looking upon the circumstances that causes it is where the misery comes from. It's not the external event in itself, but our attitude towards it, the way we handle the event occurring, which is behind it. And in this verse number 253, we listen to God's first line on it, he says, reach not for moments of misery. Reach not for moments of misery. It's not that the moments of misery are reaching us. God is saying, stop reaching for your moments of misery. Now, the only way that we can stop something is we're thinking about this misery some way, and God is saying that there is an error. And so this is the first step that is involved. Are you ready at this point to be able to say, okay, I hear what God's saying about it. All right, keep going, Bob. Let's see where it's coming from. God says, reach not for moments of misery. Stop looking at the misery with the attitude that you have at this point. And he goes on in the second sentence and states, instead of reaching out for misery, seek for the heart of the realm in which glory is found. Glory, the ultimate joys, the ultimate love. God states, instead seek for the hearts of the realms in which glory is found, and which, instead of misery, you experience joy. That's the beginning step, is you're going to be able to reach for a different part of yourself, of your heart, that enables you to feel joy rather than misery. Well, that's the step that God is talking about of wanting to do it. Now, God knows something else, that you're bound to say, okay, Bob, in the midst of that misery, and we're supposed to reach for that realm, how do you do it? And you're right in asking that kind of a question, because it's one thing for me to tell you something, and it's another thing to discuss how do we practice it. And so we're talking now again about prayer life, of how do we abandon our own way of looking at something and recover the way that God wants us to recover it, so that we have a heartfelt moment of joy, of peace. Where is this found? It is found in the prayer that in whatever circumstance, relationship, whatever is causing you to feel this misery, that you turn to God and you would say, let me experience this moment now as you want me to. Or if it's related to a relationship with another person, let me look upon this moment as you would want me to, and handle it the way you would want me to. Or maybe the misery is about yourself. You've had what you consider to be a failure, a disappointment, a downing moment, a depression, a state of anxiety, a resentment that's making you feel guilty, that it's coming from you, that again, the prayer for it, love, whoever your God is, whatever you call your God, love, let me see this as you want me to see it, and handle these feelings about myself the way you want me to feel it. You are shifting over now to God's ability to deliver to you God's thinking of it. And when you shift into God's presence and the God mind which is in you, you have peace no matter what's going on. Now, how does this happen? Well, that's for the second segment of Overcoming Human Misery.